So what? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. فاتحة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الفاتحة.
صلوات.
تائبانوں کا بیان کس کو دوں اب لوریاں ڈھونڈتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں تیرا جھولا جل گیا اے میرے تشنا دہاں ڈھونڈتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں خوبرا کرتا تیرا ہائے وہ بھی چن گیا خوبرا کرتا تیرا ہائے وہ بھی چن گیا اب جیو کس کے سہارے پاس میرے کیا رہا زندگی ہے رائے گاں عمر بر نوح خاں ڈھونڈتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں تائبانوں کا بیان کس کو دوں اب لوریاں عطا ہائے وہ نازک گلا 3 دن سے خشک تھا برق مجھے تیرے نے وہ کس قدر زخمی کیا تر ہوئے خون سے زبان لے سکے نہ ہچکیاں گونجتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں تھا یہ بانوں کا بیاں کس کو دوں اب لوریا گونجتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں خال جولا دیکھ کر اے میرے نور نظر خال جولا دیکھ کر اے میرے نور نظر آنکھ بھر جاتی ہے میری اور روتا ہے جگر سو گئے ہو تم کہاں چین پایا کیسے ماں ڈھونڈتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں میرے کیا ریحان کیا جس نے یہ نوحہ سنا میرے کیا ریحان کیا جس نے یہ نوحہ سنا اشک آنکھوں سے بہا کر اس نے رو رو کر کہا ہائے یہ اصغر کی ماں وہ تیرا امتحان گونجتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں تیرا جھولا جل گیا اے میرے تشنا دہاں ڈھونڈتی پھرتی ہے مادر ہے میرا اصغر کہاں صلوات الفاتحہ
اللهم صل على Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Mu'mineen, tonight's Ruhani Majlis announcements. Majlis has been sponsored by Kulsum Bhai Danji for the Sale Sawab of Marum Muhammad Hussain Bhai Danji, Marumins of Danji family, Marumins of Ramji family, and Kul Marumins. Next Majlis is for the Sale Sawab of Marum Jafar Ali Bhai, Muhammad Hussain Ali Bhai Danji, and Kul Marumins. Next Majlis is by Brother Raza Hussain Rahim and all Warisos for the Majlis of Bar Masik of Marum Mullah Muhammad Rahim, Maruma Nargis Bhai Rahim, Marum Mustafa Pira, and Kul Marumins. Today's Majlis is also by Dr. Murtaza Walji and family for the Bar Masik Majlis of Marum Mullah Muhammad Rahim and Kul Marumins. Next Majlis is for the Saleh Sawab of Marum Sultan Ali Ali Bhai Jafar, Marum Hussain Suleiman, Maruma Nargis Bhai Rahim, Marumins of Jafar family, Marumins of Rahim family, and Kul Marumins. Next Majlis is by Dr. Chandu for the Saleh Sawab of Marum Sultan Ali Ali Bhai Jafar, Marum Hussain Suleiman, Maruma Nargis Bhai Rahim, Marumins of Jafar family, and Marumins of Rahim family. Next Majlis is by Sayyid Afzal Bhai Mehdi for the Saleh Sawab of Marum Sayyid Fazal Hussain, Maruma Aziz Fatima, Ketki Begum, Marum Sayyid Tafazzul Hussain, Marum Sayyid Ansar Hussain, and Kul Marumins. You are humbly requested to recite Surah Fatiha for Kul Marumins. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers, elders, and sisters in Islam. Before I begin, I would like to send our sincerest condolences to Imam of our time for the passing of his great-grandfather, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet Muhammad was born in the 570th year after the death. His father Abdullah passed away a few months after his birth, and his mother Amina passed away just when he was 6 years old. He was looked after by his grandfather Abdul Muttalib and then his uncle Abu Talib. He married Bibi Khadija, who gave all her wealth to Islam. He had a daughter called Bibi Fatima, who was known to be called the leader of the women in paradise. Prophet Muhammad was persecuted a lot by the Quraysh, who worshipped the idols. To escape ongoing persecution, he sent some of his followers to Abyssinia in 615 AD. Prophet Muhammad had many qualities, a few being As-Sadiq, the truthful, Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, and Al-Mustafa, the chosen. It is mentioned in reliable traditions that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein said that the Prophet's nobility was visible through his eyes, and that his chest reflected the bravery and awe. His face always remained radiant like the bright moon of the 14th night of the lunar month. Regarding courage, Prophet Muhammad was brave and strong. We saw this in his battles like Badr or Uhud, when the Quraysh planned to assassinate him, causing the walk from Makkah to Medina, marking the start of the Islamic calendar. After the Prophet's demise, he left a legacy like no other, the Ahlul Bayt who had courage running through their blood, like Imam Ali in his battles or Imam Hussein in Karbala, or arguably one of the most courageous women in Islamic history, the granddaughter, Bibi Zainab, who was mocked in the streets of Sham as the heads of her brother and family were paraded. She stood up to the person who killed her brother and spoke out in the court of Yazid. She spoke out with courage like her grandfather. She remained patient, like how the Prophet stayed patient when he was banished to the valley. She would influence the Medinans when she came back from Karbala, just like when her grandfather came from Makkah to Medina. Our beloved Holy Prophet sadly passed away on the 28th of Safar, 11th AH, under difficult circumstances. There are many lessons we can learn from our beloved Prophet. The love and compassion of Allah's Messenger for all kind creatures was beyond comprehension. He was sincere and balanced in his love and compassion. He was a prophet raised by Allah, the creator and sustainer of all beings, for the guidance and happiness of conscious beings, mankind and jinn, and the harmony of all existence. Therefore, He lived not for himself but for others. He is a mercy for all the world. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ما شاء الله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي سمي في السماوات بأحمد وفي الأرضين بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الهداة المهديين، سيما أولهم أمير المؤمنين وآخرهم بقية الله في الأراضين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقتلتهم وغاصب حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم العنين. أما بعد, for the happiness of Hazrat Zahra Marziyah, for the enlightenment of the graves of your marhumin, of the graves of the Shahada, Ulama and Siddiqeen, for the safety of the followers of Ahlul Bayt around the world, and for the safety and the hastening of the reappearance of Hazrat Baqiyatullah al-A'zam Arwahun al-Fida, please recite your loudest salawat. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is Rahman and the one who is Rahim. We've gathered today to commemorate the death of that individual who was the best of men. No, not just the best of men, the best of creation. Not just the best of creation, the first of creation. Not just the first of creation, but the reason for creation. Not just the reason for creation, but the purpose for creation. Not just the purpose for creation, but the purpose of creation. An individual that is known as the light of the heavens and the earth, none other than the personality of the wujud of Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There are many things that one can take from the life of Rasulullah. When Jabir asked him, said, Ya Rasulullah, what was the first of creation? And the Holy Prophet said to him, Nuru Nabiyyika ya Jabir. It was the light of your Prophet, O Jabir. It's a very lengthy tradition where the Holy Prophet talks about how his nur was split. And then that was then split into 4 parts. And those 4 parts were then used to create the arch and the lawh and the qalam. And then the 4th part of that was taken higher into realms. And then that was split into 4 parts, etc., etc. The khulasa of that whole hadith is this, that all of existence exists because of the Holy Prophet. Not that everything creation is for Ali Muhammad, but rather creation is from Ali Muhammad. That it was their nur that was created, and the nur of the Holy Prophet that was then broken into those 5 nur, that was then further broken down until there were these 14 nur. And from those original 5 came the arsh, came the heavens and the earth, came the sun and the moon, came the hurul ain and the heaven, came the hellfire. All of this originates back to one source, one point of emanation, and that was the nur of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Everything goes back to him. And we can't understand the Holy Prophet. It is impossible for us to try and comprehend this individual who is the first of everything. He himself says, when my nur was created, for a while it was kept with Allah, a time that only Allah knows. In another narration, Imam al-Baqir, again to Jabir, saying, Jabir, we stayed with Allah for 14,000 years. It is not known 14,000 years of the dunya, i.e. 365 days for 1 year, or 14,000 years of the akhirah, where 1 day is equivalent to 1,000 years of the dunya. It says, but we were there for 14,000 years before Adam was even created. The nur of Ali Muhammad, the nur of the Holy Prophet was there before all of them. How can I try and comprehend that individual? It is impossible. The mind boggles at what is within the wujud of the Holy Prophet. The very first light that emanated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Urafah refer to it as Nur Muhammadi, the Muhammadan light. That was the light of the Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. We'll leave this discussion at this point, that in Ziyarat Rajabiyya, there is a line where we're discussing and talking about Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We're addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're saying, Ya Allah, la farqa baynaha wa baynaka illa annahum ibaduk wa khalquk. That, Ya Allah, there is no difference between you and Ali Muhammad, except that they are your ibad, your servants, and your creation. There is no difference, i.e. they possess all of those sifat from Allah, the difference being that Allah is khaliq and they are still makhluq. We shouldn't get worried. See a lot of worried faces in the crowd. It's not making you a mushrik. Allah is there. Allah is always there. Allah is above everything. Allah is beyond everything. But that same Allah chose to manifest His divine names in the wujud of Ali Muhammad. And that's why Imam Sadiq says, Nahnu asma Allah. That we are the manifestations of the names of God upon the earth. But to understand them is impossible, because they too are connected with that limitless power that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an emanation of His essence, of His characteristics. One can't comprehend them. But what one can do is take the lessons that they have given us in order that we may ascend. Because the human being is limitless by his very nature. Limitless both in the positive, in terms of his progression, but also limitless in terms of his degradation, in terms of how low that he can fall. When it comes to his progression in the positive, in Hadith Qudsi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Yabna Adam, son of Adam, Ana hayyu la yamut. I am the living that shall never die. Ati'ni fima amartuk. Obey me. Do those things that I have commanded you. Aj'alaka hayyan la tamut. And I will make you the living that shall never die. Carries on, says, Yabna Adam, Ana aqulu lishay kun fayakun. I am the one that says to something, be, and it will become. Ati'ni fima amartuk. Obey me in regards to that which I have commanded you to do. أَجْعَلَكَ تَقُولُ لِشَيْءٍ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. And I will make you the one that will say to something be, and it will become. I will allow you to create. In the same way that Isa alayhi salam created, not in how Allah creates. Allah brings things from non-existence into existence. Isa alayhi salam brought things from semi-immateriality towards materiality. Allah, in the realms of the immaterial, brings things to semi-immateriality, from semi-immateriality into the material realm. We as the human being can bring those things that are in the semi-immaterial realms towards the material realms, if we choose to ascend. The basis of all of these powers that Allah is offering the human being is His obedience. If one obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He will give that individual that. The height that the human being can reach is the one of makarimul akhlaq, the peak of morality, that he embodies everything that it means to be human. Because to be human means to embody and manifest all of the names of God within one's actions. We do it already. The only reason that I can see is because He is Basir, and I am taking from His name of Basir, and I see. I hear because I draw from His name of Samir, and I'm able to hear. Otherwise, I have nothing of myself. Nothing I possess in my life is mine. Everything I manifest from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, if it was from me, then that youth, those years of youth that have left me, those that are older, ask them, will your youth to come back? Those that are ill, ask them, will your health to return back to you? Those things that you have forgotten, will them to come back into your mind so that you remember them? The fact that you cannot do this means that they were never yours in the first place. That just through your will that you can bring them back. Meaning I just simply draw from Allah and I manifest in a small way those sifat. All of you look very confused at the moment. Please recite salawat. There's a story, Ayatollah Taqi Ja'fari Falsafi, a famous philosopher. And he got called to, before the revolution in Iran, to Tehran University to give a talk on philosophy. And so he says in the crowd there were individuals, BA students, MA students, PhD students, a professor, and also the Minister for Culture. So he says, I started my discussion on philosophy and everyone was nodding their head and agreeing and saying yes, yes. So he said, I said to myself, Taqi, take it to another level. So he took it to another level. And he says, now the BA students had no idea what I was talking about. The MA, PhD, the professor, and the Minister of Culture were all nodding, understanding. So he says, I said to myself, Taqi, take it to another level. And so I took it to another level. Now the BA and the MA students had no idea what I was talking about. The PhD, the professor, and the cultural minister knew what I was talking about. They were nodding. So I said to myself, Taqi, take it to another level. So he says, I took the discussion even heavier and harder. And now, none of the undergrads, the postgrads understood what I was talking about. Just the professor and the Minister of Culture. So he said, Taqi, take it to another level. Now, neither the professor understood, nor the PhD students, or the MA or the BA students. Just the Minister of Culture was nodding his head. So he says, I said, Taqi, take it to another level. And now he says that nobody in the auditorium understood what I was talking about. So I said to myself, I challenged myself, I said, Taqi, take it to another level. He says, I took it to such a level that I myself didn't even understand. So, unfortunately, the nature of these discussions is as such. Recite the salawat, please. So we'll bring it down, back down again. So the akhlaq this makarimul akhlaq is the epitome of where the human being can reach, where he manifests all of those names of God within his very wujud. And the Holy Prophet was the one that said, وَإِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتِمَّمَ مَكَارِمُ الْأَخْلَاقِ, that I have been made a prophet in order to take you towards makarimul akhlaq. Meaning makarimul akhlaq is a maqam, is a status that a person has to reach. It is a journey that one has to embark upon. And the only person that can take you on that journey towards the height of morality is the Holy Prophet, and by extension, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. They hold you and they take you on that journey. I want to look at a very interesting narration. It's a conversation that happens between Abu Dhar and the Holy Prophet. It's a very lengthy tradition, and I'm only going to pick out a few parts in regards to the topic that I want to discuss today. And then those that want can go, and it's all translated in English, and you can read the whole conversation that the Holy Prophet is having with Abu Dhar, and he's giving him certain esoteric and akhlaqi advices. In one of those advices, because one of the major manifestations of akhlaq, when one achieves or walks upon the path of akhlaq, of morality, by their very nature, they get drawn towards ubudiyah, towards worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in this hadith, the Holy Prophet begins to discuss certain parts about worship with Abu Dhar. He says to him, Ya Abu Dhar, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you were seeing him. And if you can't see him, then worship him knowing that he can see you. The first thing is worship Allah as if you are seeing him. This itself is a statement that if one wanted, there's a whole ashra in this. How is it that I can see Allah? We know that Allah is immaterial, beyond immaterial. So how is it that the Holy Prophet is saying, see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pray as if you are seeing him? And Amir al-Mu'mineen himself says, I don't pray to a Lord that I cannot see. But it is, you all know, with the eyes of the heart that one gazes upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those eyes of the heart only open, as you say in Munajat Sha'baniyya, إلهي هب لي كمال الانقطاع إليك وأنر أبصار قلوبنا بضياء نظرها إليك. My Lord, cut off all of those things that seek me to distract me from you, so that the eyes of my heart open and can gaze upon you, cutting through the curtains that separate me from you, فَتَصِلَ إِلَى مَعْدِنِ الْعَظَمَ, so that I can be joined with your majesty, that I may gaze upon the divine light with the eyes of my heart. That is one of the maqam that one needs to reach. But at the lower level, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you are seeing Allah. And if you can't see him, you don't feel his presence, then at least know this, that he sees you. That he is watching you and he is hearing you and he sees everything that you do. In another narration, the Holy Prophet says, pray your salah as if it is your last salah. How would you pray it? If you knew that you were going to die, you'd take your time. You would focus. And sometimes we act like we don't have time. You say to someone, sit down, do this tasbih. No, I haven't got time. I need to rush through it. I need to rush through everything because I don't have time. See, in Laylatul Qadr, everyone's got these, we've got our sheets and we're ticking through. Everything is like, oh great, I did Surah Dukhan, I did this, I did this, I did this. All of these things I did, it makes me feel good. How much of it I concentrated on, no idea. But I did everything. And I want everything to run fast. Oh, why did they put the slow reciter on for Josh and Kabir? Oh, what point are we on right now? How many more? Because I don't have that love of ubudiyah. Everything is about doing everything as fast as I can. Whereas worship requires you to take time. The more you complain about time, Amirul Mu'mineen says, the more you complain about the lack of time, the least amount of time you have. Allah removes the barakah from your time. So you actually never get anything done with your life. But the more you thank Allah for the time that He has given you, He will increase that time for you. And you will be able to achieve much more with your life within that time. You all know Tayya al-Ard, right? What Asif al-Barakhiyya did. He brought the throne of Bilqis in the blink of an eye towards Sulaiman alayhi salam. Tayya al-Ard means what? The earth folds in on itself. The distance becomes shorter. The Urafat speak about Tayya al-Zaman. That time itself folds for an individual. So that they are able to achieve much more in a short amount of time. There are certain portals like this which allow you to go from one point to a whole lifetime worth of worship. One of those is Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr. 82 years, 83 years in one night. But I'm just worried about what time I need to get up for work in the morning. Not about ascending on that night. So Tayya Zaman is reducing the time. Recently I hear that you were given some homework, 500 tasbih of salawat, right? So now many people are like, oh, I'm not going to put my hand up for this. See, the problem is the fear of it comes because we think we're worried about time. That's where it comes from. Oh, who's got time for that? But you see, the idea of Tayya Zaman is this, that the more you do something, time itself will bend to your will. Whereas when you first start that 500, it will take you 30, 40 minutes. But tell me, in about 6 months, how long those 500 take you? Ask those people who've been reciting Salatul Layl regularly, all 11 rak'ah. They will tell you that when I started first, they might not have even thought about this. When they first started, 25, 30, 40 minutes. But now you ask them and they're like, oh no, it's okay, it's 15 minutes. Is it because they've sped up? No, they're still reciting the same. Time has folded for them. Time folds. Because time is a construct. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Yabna Adam, son of Adam, khalaqtul ashya'a lak. I have created everything for you. But I have created you for me. You obey me, everything will become subservient to you. Time is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're always in a rush when it comes to our salah, when it comes to, everything. At the end, I don't want to do tasbih. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it super fast. Tasbih of Hazrat Zahra, Allah, how fast everyone's going with it. But one of the effects of tasbih of Hazrat Zahra is that it increases. Do you know this Tayya Zaman? One of the effects of tasbih of Zahra alayha salam is this. That you get, the more often you do it, the more barakah you get in your time. In fact, the Arafah would say, and they still say that one who has some sort of problem, especially those of you that are at school that are studying, and you're trying to get a problem, trying to understand something, recite the tasbih of Hazrat Zahra and then go to sleep. Even your sleep will become a working dream for you. This is the effect of it. Your sleep will also become working for you. That you will begin to understand and utilize your sleep for more effective methods rather than just sleeping. You'll still rest, but certain realities will unlock themselves for you. The Arafah would heavily push upon it. Everyone listening? Yeah? Good. And so the Urafah would heavily stress upon it that recite the tasbih of Hazrat Zahra. In fact, leave aside the Urafah, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he said that we enforce the tasbih of our grandmother Hazrat Zahra upon our children in the same way that we enforce salah upon them. That is the importance of this tasbih. So when it comes to worship, take your time. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you are seeing Him. In another narration from the Imam alayhi salam says, fear Allah as if you are seeing Him. And that fear of Allah has dwindled somewhat. Especially in this age of social media and TikTok and all sorts. Now before, people used to commit their sins and it just used to be hidden. Now I want to advertise it everywhere. I want to look like a fool in front of everyone. Because I want to advertise all the little dance videos and the little rap videos that I'm making. I want everyone to look at the foolishness that I'm getting up to. And where Allah is being satarul uyub and hiding our sins, we're like, no, forget you. I need everyone to see this. I need everyone to see how much of a gangster I am. No, I'll have a photo with this in my mouth and throwing all sorts of gang symbols. You live in Peterborough, man. There's nothing gangster about Peterborough. I'll be honest with you. So, whatever you're doing on TikTok, and people see, it's not like, oh, nobody's going to see, only my friends at school will see. No, we all see it. Things go around fast. So we see who's making a fool of themselves and who isn't. And so in this time, we have to be even more fearful of the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. We have to go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and approach Him as if He is seeing us. And if I can't see Him, if I can't feel His presence, there are a number of reasons for that. One, the sins that have accumulated over my heart, I'm unable to go towards Him. I'm unable to understand Him. Some of those things happen because of sins, because of ghafla. But if I can't do it because of the rust of my heart, then I need to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. When I get that, when I internalize that, then that rust will start to fall off of my heart. The second thing that the Holy Prophet says Abu Dhar, know that the first stage of worship is the ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the ma'rifah of Allah. Understanding Allah. Thinking about Allah. Even the Urafah, when they speak about the stages of progression towards Allah, after ma'rifah comes hub. After ma'rifah comes love. You don't fall in love without understanding. It says the first stage of his ma'rifah is knowing Him. And know that He is first before anything. And He is alone and there is none that is His equal. And He will continue with no end. He is the creator of all things. Then He says the second stage of worship is to know that I am His prophet. And the third stage is to understand that my Ahlul Bayt are those that you must love. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purified them with a thorough purification. This is how He says about worship. He introduces worship. That first the ma'rifah of Allah, then the ma'rifah of Rasulullah, then the ma'rifah and the love of Ahlul Bayt. These three are key for your ascension, without which a person can never ascend towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person can never get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without these three. The journey towards Allah cannot be completed without the wilayah of the Hujjah. It's impossible. That's why Sayyid al-Shahadat, when he's leaving Mecca, one of the things that he says just before the Hajj is من كان بازلا فينا محجة وموطنا على لقاء الله فليرحل معنا إني راحل مصبحا إن شاء الله. He says, those of you that have made a firm intention to spill your blood in our way and have made an intention to meet with Allah. Imam al-Husaini, people are coming for Hajj. The purpose of Hajj, often people say, is for liqa Allah, to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here Sayyid al-Shahadat is saying that if you want to meet with Allah, come with me. The Imam is trying to explain that without the love of the Hujjah, these are just you circumambulating the Kaaba. It is not tawaf. Without ma'rifah and the wilayah of the Hujjah, no ibadat is accepted. Until you understand the Hujjah, until you understand the maqam of the Imam. This is why Abbas alayhi salam, when he's giving his khutbah in the Kaaba, he stands on the Kaaba, he addresses them. He says, Ayyuhal kafaratul fajara. Oh kuffar, these are hajis, Abbas. They're wearing the ihram, they've come. He said, no, oh kuffar, oh fujjar, oh open sinners. أيها الكفرة الفجرة أتصدون طريق البيت لإمام البررة من هو أحق به من سائر البرية من هو أدنى به ولولا حكم الله الجلية واختباره العلية لطار البيت قبل أن يمشي لديه قد استلم الناس الحجر والحجر يستلم يديه. He says that, O kuffar, O fujjar, are you trying to stop the way of the rightful Imam towards the Bayt? Do you know who he is? If it was not for the command of Allah, you would have seen the house lift from its foundation and fly towards him before he could walk towards it. All of mankind wishes to kiss the black stone, but the stone wishes to kiss the hand of Hussein. It's the ma'rifah of the Imam that Abbas alayhi salam has. Without the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt, an individual cannot progress. Worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understanding the maqam of those places as well. Karbala, the ziyarat, that's a given. But even the masjid, in another piece of advice in the same hadith, the Holy Prophet says to Abu Dhar, he says to him, Abu Dhar, regarding the masjid, says, whoever answers the caller of Allah, i.e. the mu'adhin, and does well in inhabiting the masajid of Allah, his reward from Allah is paradise. So Abu Dhar asks the Holy Prophet, what do you mean inhabiting the masjid? What is meant by being an inhabitant of the masjid? The Holy Prophet says that those that are in the masjid should not raise their voices when they're inside them, and should not talk about useless matters. It's very important to note. Sometimes, even during majalis, there are some people, and there are probably some people in the masjid right now, that are sitting. But at times, there is this need to have a conversation. It's not jaiz in the masjid to talk about worldly affairs. Sitting next to someone, talking to them about the football, talking to them about their day. If you're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're talking about worship, it's fine. Says, but says, don't talk about anything. Do not discuss about things. Do not do buying and selling in the masjid. Says, leave foolish talk for as long as you are in the masajid. And if you don't, then don't blame Allah on the day of judgment. Blame yourself for not understanding the maqam of the masjid. But he says, Abu Dhar, as long as you are sitting in the masjid and obeying the rules of the masjid, says, for every breath taken while you sit in that masjid, you are given another maqam in paradise, a higher station in paradise. For every breath that a person takes, and the angels, they send their blessings upon you. And for every breath you take, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes 10 good deeds for you and removes 10 sins from you, just by sitting in the masjid. We want to get out of there as quick as we can. So we come and we're like, no, I've got to get out of here. I feel agitated when I'm in the masjid. The masjid is the central focus in the life of any Muslim, or should be the central focus of any Muslim. It's where the sense of an Islamic community and the community feeling is derived from, because it's based on that fear of Allah, that consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we lost a lot of it during COVID. A lot of us were gripped by that fear. And I'm not saying, that all of the, separation and the masks and all of that was all bad. I'm not going against those COVID regulations. I'm saying, look at the fundamental thing. That we were so afraid, and even now we're still afraid. What was the fear? It wasn't catching COVID per se. It was the fear of dying. It was the fear of dying that pushed us away from each other. Even though there were things in place, certain people still didn't come. They were like, no. Even though they weren't vulnerable. And the Holy Quran says, قُلْ إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ الَّذِي تَفِرُّونَ مِنْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. Tell them this death that they run away from. Eventually they'll be reunited with this death. They can't run from it. It will chase them and hunt them down wherever they are. What was the fear? The fear was death. But for some, it was the perfect storm, the perfect excuse for something that they had wanted to do for the longest time. And that was not come to the masjid. You see, it's all about tawfiq. Certain people for years have only had tawfiq to stand outside the doors of the masjid. They've never come inside the majlis. Salatul Jama'ah is going on. Certain people do not have tawfiq for Salatul Jama'ah. They'll be running around doing other things. It's all about tawfiq min Allah. Certain individuals will be deprived of this tawfiq. Years and years and years. And so years and years of turning my back. So Allah's like, okay, here's your excuse. Let me see how you maintain this now. And I'm like, this is great. I can recline on the sofa, put my feet up, chai in my hand while the majlis is going on. Some love that. Some were like, excellent, great. I don't even have to go to a majlis. Others were like, no, I will turn my home into a Husainiyah. I'll turn my home into a masjid. It's varying degrees of tawfiq. Others thought, if it's not happening here, I'll go on YouTube. I'll find something. I will partake in a majlis. I'll partake in a majlis. Some people right now, I mean, I'm seeing it here as well. You know, nobody shakes hands anymore. Everyone's afraid. Nobody shakes hands with each other after salah. But for niyaz, you sit right across from each other. So either it's COVID or there's not COVID. Or either you just hated the shaking hands in the first place. This was a sieving process to see who's who and what's what. There are some that fear it. They won't shake. They'll sit next to you. They won't shake hands. We've left that. Where, at what point, where is it that I'm going? Where is my connection? What am I actually focused on? I'll give you another example. Now this might get a bit more controversial. Got a new carpet, yeah? But I'll stand outside and eat and drink my tabarruk. Why? For fear of the carpet. The carpet might get dirty, or COVID, one of the two. Even though I know it's makruh to stand and eat and drink. On one side is a makruh. On the other side is a carpet. I'm not talking about here. Even at home, when I get a new carpet in, I'll make sure. Where is the attachment? Is it the carpet that is holding me down to the dunya? Al-hakum takathur. The multiplicities of this world, they pin you down and they hold you to this dunya. What is it? Where is it that our minds are at? Are they connected to the divine or are they drowned in the dunya? Everyone needs to ask themselves that question. The masjid is central. There are still many people now that will just stay at home, won't return back to the masjid. And maybe for me and those of my age and slightly older, it's okay, we've done our time, we had it. But for the future generations, to rekindle and instill that love within them. Otherwise, if the masjid is not central to their life, then we will begin to lose them as the Bani Israel and the people previous lost their generations. You know, the Holy Prophet says that I fear for you that you will be misguided. حَظْوَ النَّعْلِ بِالنَّعْلِ وَالْقِدَّةِ بِالْقِدَّةِ. Step by step, in the same way that a baby camel follows its mother, step in the footsteps of the previous, كَمَا أُمَمِ السَّابِقَةِ, like the previous ummas that came before you. And one of the things he says is that he tells his companions, he says, recite Quran loudly in your homes. For I fear that you too will become like the other ummas before, that no longer recite their holy books in their homes. That no longer have that connection with the masjid. Everything that we do, we need to look 10, 15 years ahead. We need to have that basira towards where it is that it is going. So you have the akhlaq, that akhlaq in worship. To have the ma'rifah of my worship. To have that akhlaq towards Allah. You know, some people come, they want to do dua in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they've got their legs stretched out, they're leaning against the wall, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi. It's not ibadat. Certainly if I went to another human being and worshipped him like that, or not worshipped him, sorry, asked him for something, he'd be like, get out of here. Or I went to someone to ask for help and then I'm on my phone going, yeah, just 1 second, you know, I need this, but I'm just going to text my friend. Then I'm like, why isn't Allah answering me? Because I don't have that akhlaq when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that akhlaq in my interaction with other people. You know, the Holy Prophet was the epitome of akhlaq. When an individual came to they would come to visit him, he would meet them with the greatest of respect. He would invite them into his home. He would say he loved guests in his home. He would make them feel at ease and give them whatever they needed. At one point, one of the Arab, they came, one of those people, one of the Bedouins of the desert, they came to visit the Holy Prophet. And as he began talking to the Holy Prophet, he began shaking out of fear. And the Holy Prophet of Islam holds on to him and says, my brother, what are you afraid of? I'm not some king that you should be afraid. I'm just a man. Because Islam fundamentally is against this idea of a monarchy. Even though living under a monarchy, there's no ishkal. The early Muslims, they went to Abyssinia. You just heard our young brother say, under Najashi, the king. But at the same time, they didn't compromise on their morals or on their deen at any point. They didn't compromise. Even Musa alayhi salam, if you look at the story of Musa alayhi salam, it's very interesting. When he goes back to Fir'aun in order to guide him, bring him towards the truth, Fir'aun says, listen Musa, I was the one that raised you. I took care of you. I gave you safety. I let you have all of these things. And now you're coming and telling me I'm wrong. Yeah, so you know what Musa alayhi salam turns around and says? Musa alayhi salam says that these favors that you're talking about, are they the same favors that you bestowed on me while oppressing my people of Bani Israel? Meaning what? One can live under that, a regime of some sort, but it does not mean that they suppress their right to speak the truth, speak the haqq. Where dhulm is happening. Doesn't mean that they have to sing the praise of a dhalim, for example. Musa alayhi salam said, yes, you did all this for me, but you've transgressed. And so now I've come as an apostle to guide you towards that truth. All the Muslims went, but they did not give up on their morals, because at the end of the day, the land is the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ardallahi al-wasi'ah. Everything is the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Holy Prophet and the early Muslims knew this. So when they went, they had the best of akhlaq, but they never compromised on their morality. So the Holy Prophet had this demeanor about him where he would call people with love. And he would show them love constantly. He was extremely down to earth. You know, he says that there are 5 things that I shall never leave until my death. The first is that sitting on the floor and eating with the slaves. I'll never leave this. The second is riding on the back of a saddleless donkey. Not even a horse or a camel. a donkey. Milking the goats with my own hands, meaning doing my own things, whatever I need to do, doing it with my own hands. Wearing rough clothing, simple rough clothing, and saying salam to the children before they can say it to me, so that it becomes a sunnah after me. How much of the sunnah of the Holy Prophet do we embody in our day-to-day lives? How much of that sunnah do we follow? And the reality is this: Karbala happened because the sunnah of the Prophet was killed. Imam al-Husayn to the people of Basra, he writes, "Ala wa inna sunnata qad umitat wa inna al-bid'ata qad uhyiyat." He says that you should know that the sunnah of the Prophet has been killed and innovation has become commonplace within this society. The reason Karbala is happening because the sunnah of the Prophet is not being followed. We have the Husayn of our time waiting for us. On what side am I falling? History has told us already that there have always been Yazids and always been Karbalas. And they've had characteristics. Which of the characteristics do I embody? The sunnah of the Prophet was one of softness and of akhlaq. Do I embody that softness and that akhlaq? Or is it that I'm harsh with others? I'm disrespectful to my parents. Or I'm disrespectful to my children. It works both ways. Both sides get damnation. Those that are disrespectful to their parents, damned to the fires of hell. And those that are oppressive towards their children, also damned to the fire of hell. It works both ways. See, akhlaq is a two-way street. And so the Holy Prophet came to embody this akhlaq in every aspect. In his worship, in his interactions with other people, in his interactions with the animals and the plants, the environment as a whole. Telling people don't cut down trees unnecessarily. Don't beat animals unnecessarily. Don't pull flowers just because you like the look of them and then you'll throw them away. These are all the akhlaq of the Prophet. It's not just in regards to how we interact with other people, also with the environment as a whole. And so this whole nation, because of his akhlaq, the same nation that would stone him, just a short few years later were the very same people who would come and gather the water of his wudu for tabarruk. But in the hearts of some, there was still that hubb ad-dunya, that attachment to this world. That when it came to the time of the death of the Holy Prophet, only a dozen or so Muslims were at his funeral. This question will always remain until the Day of Judgment. The Prophet of God, the greatest of men, the greatest of creation, all of those thousands of Muslims, why was there only a handful of people at his funeral? As the Holy Prophet of Islam was leaving this world, his head on the lap of his daughter Zahra Marziya, crying, weeping, as she sees her father, the poison coursing through his body, having an effect upon him. Zahra alayhi salam crying. Someone knocks at the door. The Holy Prophet is coming in and out of consciousness. Someone knocks at the door. Zahra Marziya turns towards the door. She calls out. She says, the Holy Prophet is resting. Please come at another point. The person goes away. Then a second time the person comes and knocks. Zahra again calls out. She says, the Holy Prophet is resting. Please come back at another point. The person goes away again. The third time when they come and they knock at the door, and now the tears from the eyes of Zahra fall upon the face of the Holy Prophet. He opens his eyes. He looks towards her. He says, Zahra, what is it? She says, Father, there is someone that keeps on coming and knocking on the door, and I keep on asking them to go, but they keep returning. Rasulullah says to her, Zahra, that is Malikul Maut. He respects your door so much that he will not come in order to take my soul without your permission. Zahra, give him permission to enter into this into this home. Ya Rasulullah, Zahra gave Malikul Maut the permission to enter into the house, and he came and he took your soul. But Ya Rasulullah, what happened after your death? Where Malikul Maut respected the honor and the sanctity of the door of Zahra, the same Muslims who you had come to guide, these same Muslims now come to the door of Zahra with fire in their hand, and your daughter is pleading with them from behind the door. This is the door of Wahi. This is the door that Rasulullah would send salam upon. Will you burn down this door? They kicked open the door. Zahra crushed between the wall and the door. Ya Rasulullah, that rib of Zahra never healed until the day she left this world. Ya Rasulullah, this ummah, what is it that they did for you after your death? Zahra Marziya, until the day she died, she cried for you. She cried over her own madhlumiyya. صبت علي مصائب لو أنها صبت على الأيام سرنا لياليا. Ya Rasulullah, Zahra cried. She cried until the day she died. Ya Rasulullah, Ali cried on the grave of Zahra, and Ali died until the day that he died. Hassan would think about Zahra and cry, Ya Rasulullah, but there is one in these Ahlul Kisa that even before his death and after his death, this ummah has made him cry so much that he himself says, Ana qatilul abarat. I am that one that was killed and made to cry at every stage. Your Hussein cried at the body of his Qasim. They made him cry at the body of his own and Muhammad. They made him cry even when he fell unconscious on the body of his Ali Akbar. He cried so much that Hussein alayhi salam fell unconscious. They say at that moment when Hussein fell unconscious, the Muslims stood around him. They were clapping and laughing at Abi Abdullah. Ya Rasulullah, this Hussein of yours, even after his death, he was made to cry. At the moment when he's leaving this world, in Ziyarat Nahiya, your Imam says that Hussein, when you fell upon the ground, تُدِيرُ طَرْفًا خَفِيًّا إِلَىٰ رَحْلِكَ وَبَيْتِكَ, that when you fell upon the ground, no strength to move, but from the corner of your eyes, your focus was on the tents of Zainab. Even after his death, Hussein alayhi salam remembers these pains. Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum in al-Mukashifa, when he goes for the ziyarat of Abi Abdullah, he saw that the body of Imam al-Hussein in a vision, his whole body is covered in wounds, bleeding. Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum says, Imam, is there nothing that I can do in order to aid your wounds? The Imam says, Bahrul Ulum, whenever our Shi'as gather and they shed tears for me, Hussein, they are the balm for these wounds. These wounds of mine begin to heal. These tears, do not consider them to be small or insignificant. These are what are blessed upon those that are blessed. The riwayah says Sayyid al-Shuhada himself comes into the majlis and he gives every single person permission to cry, and then the tears fall from their eyes. Otherwise, the tears will not fall. They say even if you can't cry, then do tabaki. Husain is that Kareem Imam. Says even if you can't cry for me, then at least lower your head and show respect for the musibah. Why? If you do that for me, at showing the respect, wajibat lahul jannah, jannah becomes wajib upon you. Imam says to him, Bahrul Ulum, whenever our Shi'as cry for us, these wounds of my body begin to heal. Sayyid Bahrul Ulum says, I went home, I held 10 days of majalis for Imam al-Hussein. I returned back for the ziyarat of Abi Abdullah. Again, I was given a mukashifa. I saw all the wounds of his body had healed, but there were 3 wounds on the body of Imam al-Hussein that had not healed. I said to him, Yabna Rasulillah, all the wounds have healed, but these 3 wounds, they haven't healed. He says to me, Sayyid, as long as you are alive, if all of the Muslims, all of the Shias were together and cry for me until the day of judgment, these 3 wounds will never heal. He says, Yabna Rasulillah, where were these wounds inflicted upon you? He says, Bahrul Ulum, you see these 2 wounds on my heart. The first wound was inflicted at the time when the Muslims came to the door of my mother Zahra and they set fire to it. I was young and I witnessed how they slapped and they whipped my mother Zahra. This second wound on my heart, Bahrul Ulum, was inflicted at the time when my Ali Akbar fell from his horse to the ground. This third wound on my back, Bahrul Ulum, was at that time when my Abbas fell from his horse. He called out, Ya Khadrik Akhak. Hussein called out, Anan inqasara dhahr. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, for the sake of these tears, forgive our sins. Ya Allah, for the sake of these tears, forgive the sins of our parents. Ya Allah, those of our parents that are alive, give them long lives. Those of our parents that have left this world, give them place next to Ali Muhammad in Jannah. Oh Allah, those who are ill, give them shifa'ah. Those who are in debt, clear their debts. Ya Allah, keep safety azadat of Sayyid al-Shuhada around the world. Ya Allah, give us tawfiq to go on the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein this year and every year. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and allow us to be amongst his true muntadhireen, his true awaiters, Matam Hussein.
सीने में लिए रंजो अलम करबो बला का बाबा से है मिलने को चली उम्मे अबीहा आँखों से लहू बहता है शिकस्ता या फातिमा ज़हरा या उम्मे अबीहा या फातिमा ज़हरा या फातिमा ज़हरा या फातिमा ज़हरा या फातिमा या फातिमा فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا امت نے بہت آپ کو تر پایا ہے بی بی ہر حق کے لیے آپ کو ترسایا ہے بی بی غاصب نے جو دربار میں بلوایا ہے بی بی اس دکھ سے لرزنے لگا خود عرش خدا کا یا فاطمہ زہرا 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 ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا شبیر کی دنیا میں ولادت سے بھی پہلے کہتی تھی یہ زہرا کہ بہت سہتی ہوں صدمے بچہ یہ میرا کوک میں بے چین بہت ہے بچہ میرا کہتا ہے کہ اماں میں ہوں پیاسا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا ماشاءاللہ سب مل کے یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ ماں کھانا کھلاتی ہے تو پھر کھاتے ہیں بچے جاتی ہے جہاں ماں وہی آ جاتے ہیں بچے بن ماں کے کبھی چین نہیں پاتے ہیں بچے کام آتا ہے بچوں پہ بہت ماں کا سہارا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا 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 سینے میں ازل سے ہی میرے کرب و بلا ہے جاتے ہوئے زہرا نے یہ دنیا سے کہا ہے کیا شام میں ہونا ہے یہ سب مجھ کو پتا ہے کٹتے ہوئے صحرا میں ہے شبیر کا لاشا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا اور دنیا سے چلی کہتی ہوئی بنت پیمبر غم کرب و بلا کا ہے لیے دل مجھتر آتا ہے تصور میں میرے شام کا منظر اللہ رکھے زینب و کلثوم کا پردہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا ماؤں سے عزاداروں کی زہرا نے کہا ہے عاشور کا مقصد کا برم تم نے رکھا ہے بچوں کو عزاداری پر قربان کیا ہے محشر میں چکاؤں گی میں قرضہ یہ تمہارا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا ہے یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا اب دل سے کمر وار سے زہرا کو بلاؤ اب دل سے کمر وار سے زہرا کو بلاؤ احمد یہ مرکز پہ بہت اشک بہاؤ اے ملک میں کر وہ بلا پردہ ہٹاؤ محسن کی لحد پر گیا پہلو ہے شکستہ یا فاطمہ زہرا 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 ہے یا فاطمہ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا بازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا بازی سب مل کے جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا آل عمران کہاں اور زندان کہاں دے بہن قید ہوئی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی سب مل کے جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی آل عمران کہاں اور زندان کہاں لے بہن قید ہوئی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی ہم کو پانی نہ ملے تیری خوشبو تو رہے تیرے بازو نہ کٹے چاہے مشکی داچ دے یہ مگر ہو نہ سکا تیرے بازو ہے جدا مجھ پہ ہے غش لبی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی کہوں شیر میرے بیرداہوں کو لیے یہ مسلمان سارے شہر در شہر گئے خلقت کوفہ کبھی خلقت شام کبھی اور ہم بے حسی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی سب مل کے جب ردا سر سے چنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی کیا کہوں شیر میرے بیرداہوں کو لیے یہ مسلمان سارے شہر در شہر گئے خلقت کوفہ کبھی خلقت شام کبھی اور ہم بے حسی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی آل عمران کہاں اور زندان کہاں یہ بہن قید ہوئی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی یا حسین 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 اللہم صل علی محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أنك رسوله وأنك محمد عبد الله وأشهد أنك قد بلغت رسالة ربك ونصحت لأمتك وجاهدت في سبيل الله بالحكمة وموعظة الحسنة وأديت الذي عليك من الحق وأنك قد رأفت بالمؤمنين وغلظت على الكافرين وعبدت الله مخلصا حتى أتاك اليقين فبلغ الله بك أشرف محل المكرمين الحمد لله الذي استنقذنا بك من الشرك والضلال اللهم صل على محمد وآله واجعل صلواتك وصلوات ملائكتك وأنبيائك والمرسلين وعبادك الصالحين وأهل السماوات والأرضين ومن سبح لك يا رب العالمين من الأولين والآخرين على محمد عبدك ورسولك ونبيك وأمينك ونجيبك وحبيبك وصفيك وصفتك وخاصتك وخالصتك وخيرتك من خلقك وأده الفضل والفضيلة والوسيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا يقبضه به الأولون والآخرون اللهم إنك قلت ولو أنهم إذ ظلموا أنفسهم جاءوك فاستغفروا الله واستغفر لهم رسوله لواجد الله توابا رحيما. إلهي فقد أتيت نبيك مستغفرا تائبا من ذنوبي، فصل على محمد وآله واغفر حالي. يا سيدنا أتوجه بك وبأهل بيتك إلى الله تعالى ربك ربي ليغفر لي. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. أصبنا بك يا حبيب قلوبنا، فما أعظم المصيبة بك حيث انقطع عنا الوحي وحيث فقدناك، فإنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. يا سيدنا يا رسول الله صلوات الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك الطيبين الطاهرين. هذا يوم السبت وهو يومك وأنا فيه سفيك وجارك، فأضفني وأجري فإنك كريم تحب الضيافة ومأمور بالإجارة، فأضفني وأحسن ضيافتي وأجرنا وأحسن إجارتنا بمنزلة الله عندك وعند آل بيتك وبمنزلتهم عندك وبما استودعكم من علمي، فإنه أكرم الأكرمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا محمد عبد الله. السلام عليك يا خيرة الله. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا أمين الله. أشهد أنك رسول الله، وأشهد أنك محمد بن عبد الله، وأشهد أنك قد نصحت لأمتك وجاهدت في سبيل ربك وأبدته حتى أتاك اليقين، فجزاك الله يا رسول الله أفضل ما جزى نبيا عن أمتي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أفضل ما صليت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن، عجل الله فرجا وسهل الله مخرجا وظهورا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم قل وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاردا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا صلوات.